So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another of our interviews today. My name is Iain Gillott from IGR, and we are here today with Jon Davis, who is the co-founder of TruAccess Networks. I'm going to let Jon introduce himself in a minute. This interview today, we're talking about in-building wireless, and specifically the ecosystem, the steps we have to go through in order to install a system, commercialize a system. This interview has been conducted in partnership with Connected Real Estate magazine and will be part of a special report we're doing on the in-building wireless ecosystem. So with that, Jon, I'm going to ask you a few minutes just to introduce yourself. Who are you, what do you do, and what does TruAccess Networks do?
Well, thank you, Iain. My name's obviously Jon Davis, and I've been in the industry, the wireless industry, for over 10 years now. Gosh, 2007. Worked for a company called Exthanet Systems on the indoor side, and we built a pretty successful 3PO model in my tenure there at Exthanet Systems. I decided to leave about 12 months ago and was looking for my next opportunity. And when I looked at where the industry itself was going, I felt there was a lot of opportunity on the construction and the support side of the wireless space. So when you look at TruAccess Networks, the company that we founded to address that market, we're in the business of consulting, designing, constructing, and supporting wireless infrastructure. And I want to put a finer point on the consulting piece of it because, you know, many folks, particularly in the commercial real estate industry, there's still a lot of confusion in the marketplace in terms of wireless, whether it's Wi-Fi, cellular, public safety, 3.5, 5G ready, IoT. There's numerous things that they don't necessarily understand, although we do because we're in the market. So the consulting piece for us is really trying to prep a customer in terms of understanding what's going on in their particular building and what the potential solution should look like.
Okay, great. So we'll talk in a minute about kind of the steps you go through with the customer, how you go from concept all the way through to installation. But firstly, how do you view the opportunity for the in-building wireless? 'Cause obviously, there's lots of buildings out there. We've got office space, retail, Class A, manufacturing. So is there one particular type of building you focus in on, or do you just look at the entire market? How does it work?
Well, to your point, I think there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity in a variety of different verticals. Sports and entertainment, maybe not so much. A lot of those buildings were built out. Commercial real estate, healthcare, hospitality, and specifically for us, you know, we really focus in the commercial real estate space. It doesn't mean we haven't done hospitality. It doesn't mean we won't be opportunistic in sports and entertainment. But given our background, the way the organization is set up, our experience, commercial real estate is really a prime vertical for us, and we're working in key markets across the country to address some of the wireless gaps that are in that space. So I would say it this way, that there's tremendous opportunity out there still. It gets back to the education and putting the right solutions in front of the customers to make it so that they can provide those services to their tenants and others.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about what you guys do specifically. So I'm a commercial real estate property owner. I've got a nice big building. My tenants are complaining about the in-building cellular experience. They can't get a signal, or it's congested, or it's patchy around the building. I come to you. Step us through what you'll do, kind of the process you go through to solve my problem.
Well, I guess the first thing that we'll ask is exactly what you just stated is, you know, what are the issues that you're dealing with, right? We've been around the business enough to know the age of the building, what might be in the riser, what might be in the meet me room, what a Wi-Fi deployment might look like, public safety, those types of things. But I think the first thing is to just educate them on, you know, number one, what are the needs? And by needs, I mean, if they've got tenants that are, complaining, or if they've got building operations that are complaining, what is it that they feel they need to be able to support those particular clients, if you will. So it's really going in and doing a needs analysis, sitting down with them, talking about the different options from an OEM perspective, the different options and business models that are out there through 3POs, or if they want to potentially buy it direct themselves. So it's going through those scenarios and really determining, what might best be suitable for them from a business and OEM perspective. But ultimately, it's, listening to the customer, listening to the complaints, doing an assessment to really understand what they have in their building, and then coming back to them with a solution set that we think might work for them.
So would you design then the system to go in the building in terms of where the nodes would go and, the signal source and things like this?
Yes, absolutely. So we have aligned ourselves with vendors that do design, cellular, public safety, Wi-Fi, and not only that, but just looking at the core infrastructure itself. So just looking at fiber in the building, which is another key component to, what the overall infrastructure would look like. But we don't necessarily have that core competency inside our company, but we outsource to strategic partners that do design very well.
And then would you recommend an OEM, an equipment provider, or would you do the selection for that, or just make recommendations to the building owner?
I would say we influence who the OEM may be. There are certain companies out there, not every product fits every opportunity, right? And I think as much as people would like to think that's the case, it's not, right? So depending on what the solution set looks like and what the client's budget may be, and or the budget that would have to be in place for somebody to potentially join a network, that's going to really determine who the OEM looks like. But that is part of the consulting side of it, is walking them through what their options might look like from an OEM perspective and a design perspective.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that all buildings are alike and all systems are alike. And of course, you and I both know it depends on how the building is constructed.
Exactly.
The size of the building, the industry the customer's in, number of employees. It goes on. And obviously, there's vendors who focus on different parts of the market.
Yeah, and I think it's important, the old way of doing things might be where, you'd look at a 1.4 million square foot building and you'd have to build out all of it, right? And the reality of it is, if you've got a building owner that's willing to fund a network, they might want to address a particular tenant's needs. So, looking at OEMs where, network infrastructure is easily scalable and they're positioned well for future technologies, those types of things are important when you're talking to the customer as well. It's like just being able to put the right infrastructure in place from a backbone perspective first, and then how do you scale it from there would be things to consider.
Right. So what is the ideal in-building wireless project for you? What is when you look at a building, you say, we did a job over here and that was just a perfect fit for us. That was a great project. What would that look like?
Oh boy. Good question. I'm going to answer it two ways. Shame on me. I think ideally, right, you want to be very involved in the front end of the design. So when you look at, even from an architectural perspective, right, when you start to get into the MEP, when you start to get into the low voltage and those types of things, the sad reality is, cellular is still somewhat an afterthought, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess the ideal situation from a new build perspective would be sitting down at the table with the engineering organization that's developing the wiring, developing the electrical, and making sure that the infrastructure is in place right from the onset. That way it lowers cost, and whatever you're going to put in there is scalable to address what you and I have talked about before in terms of who your OEM might be or what your particular needs might be. The ideal building for us, 1.5 million square feet, easy access, where you're not having to work at night. I think that's key. Making sure permitting and those types of things go smoothly, excuse me. And having the right team in the building where everybody understands what's going on. You know, oftentimes you walk into a building and they're like, "You're here to do what?" So I think if you have the right kickoff, you have the right access, you have the right building in the right market, in commercial real estate specifically, that's the ideal, right? And then everything goes smoothly, on schedule, on budget. You know, the building owner's happy, the carriers are happy, the tenants are happy.
Right. Good. So you and I we've been on different panels before and done different things. I always ask this question last, and I ask it of all panelists and all interviews, and it gets some interesting answers. What keeps you awake at night? And not so much from, you know, the dog barking or things like that, but rather from an in-building wireless perspective from the industry. What is it that you think that, you know, we're here in 2019, what is it that you think we're not paying enough attention to today that in 2020, 21 could come back and really hurt us? It could come back and bite us and we'll say, darn it, I really wish we'd taken care of that in 2019. What would it be?
Well, I think what keeps me up at night is a little bit about what we're talking about today, right? It's, you know, getting our customers to ultimately understand clearly what it is we do and how it benefits their building, right? And I've been doing this for, you know, 10, 11 years now. And when I first started going into commercial real estate, I would talk to people and they didn't even understand why they needed cellular and what it looked like and what the benefits were, right? When you look at, you know, where the industry's going, you know, there's a lot of buzz around 5G. They don't understand it at all. There's a lot of push around public safety. Why do I need it? So, you know, what I lay in bed at night and think about is from a marketing perspective, you know, how can we put the right package together where our customers really understand what it is that we do and the value of it and how they integrate us into the solutions or the needs of the building early on, versus being an afterthought.
Right. I think you're right. There's a lot of, and it's getting worse right now. There's a lot of confusion. We've got CBRS we've been talking about for the last few years as an industry. Right. Now we're talking 5G. And I'm hearing questions, well, I was going to do CBRS. Do I wait for 5G?
Right.
You know, things like this. And of course, the Wi-Fi is already existing. We've got millimeter wave coming. And of course, the operators and vendors keep rolling out new technologies and new solutions all the time. So we don't make it easy as an industry on the property managers or the you know, the commercial side of it at all. So,
yeah, I think if, you know, my closing statement would be, as an industry, we've got to figure out how we keep it simple and make sure our customers understand what it is. And once we do that, then we can all go figure out how we factor into what the solutions may look like. But if you've got one individual that's talking about one thing and somebody's coming into a meeting right after them and talking to them about something a little bit different, if it'd be like your daughter or your son or my daughters who I talk to often about what I do, they're like, excuse me? But if you can get that consistent message out there, which I think there are people that are trying to do that in key markets, let's make this really simple because it's really not that difficult, quite honestly. But if you can get that consistent messaging, you know, across the industry from ours into commercial real estate and beyond, quite honestly, it's ultimately all the same. I think that's a key takeaway. So again, for me, it's, you know, how do I convince our customer that, you know, we're the right solution for whatever their problems may be, but talk to them in a language that's pretty much standard and something that they can understand.
Well, great. Well, Jon, thanks very much. This afternoon, we've been talking with Jon Davis, who's co-founder of TruAccess Networks. And Jon, thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Talk soon.